I mean, when I look at our entire series and what we've been talking about, really that's what it is. Taking a step, right? Trusting God. I mean, we've been talking about art. And I've had this thing up here. We had it up on Easter Sunday, and all of you guys were able to see it. Here it is, a blank canvas. And really, I mean, I love this blank canvas. I love sort of what it is and how it looks, and maybe even sort of what it represents. I think about our lives when we choose to follow Christ. The Bible says he washes away all of our sins. The Bible says he makes us white as snow. And I think when I look at this canvas, that's sort of what a picture is to me. But see, it doesn't stop there. In fact, that's really the place where it begins. That's really the place where it gets started. It gets started with relationships. And it gets started with people. And you know, when I see this example, that's a paintbrush. When I see this example, and when I see even in my life, what I've seen is that sometimes when I get out there and I allow people into my life, this is my canvas, right? This is my canvas. This is what I have. And then what happens is that these people come in and they begin sort of to paint the canvas of my life, right? They begin to affect. They begin to change things. Sometimes in a good way, you know. Maybe my experiences are brought in, my life is brought in, that people come in, I let somebody else into my life, and I'm like, man, you know, I sort of like this. I sort of like this relationship. I like people in my life, and I find that, you know, sort of great things can happen in the midst of that. But then, inevitably, in life, as I'm going through and I'm letting people in and things are going okay, normally, something happens, right? Like what is that? I don't know, but something happens. Messes up my painting, right? But more than that, it messes up our life, doesn't it? You start following after God, someone lets you down, someone talks about you behind your back, someone says something they shouldn't have said, does something they shouldn't have done, something happens. Maybe for some of us, even worse than that. We find ourselves going through life and someone has stepped in and they've hurt us. They've done something. And here's what our temptation is. When we're painting this picture of life and we're allowing relationships to come in and building relationships with people and everything's going great and something happens to mess it up, your temptation is to do what I did. Remember I talked about it last week. You take the paints, you set them aside, and you do what's safe. You do what's comfortable. You do what you know. You go back to what you know. And for some of us, that what we know is keeping ourselves safe, keeping everybody at an arm's distance, just allowing the people into my little box that I can know and that I can trust that have been vetted into my life. And if they haven't, I'm going to keep them away at arm's distance. But the problem is, that's not how we're called to live as Christians. As Christians, we're called to be vessels of love, vessels of hope. We're called to let people in and realize that sometimes when we do, that's going to happen. See, sometimes when we do, that is what we're going to experience. But as Christians, as believers, that's the point. What are we going to do when that happens? How are we going to react? See, my Bible tells me is that we're called to take all things, right? All things in our life and surrender. And so we understand that we are called to surrender all of these things in our life to the cross. See, the good, the bad, the ugly, things we like, things we don't like, things that happen to us, things that we did, all of that stuff, we're called to bring it to the cross, to give it to Jesus, to allow Jesus to be part of every area of our life. And here's what happens. See, when we choose to live life like that, God steps in and he begins to sort of minister through that. Now, he ministers inside of us, yes, but he also begins to use this experience, this, whatever this pain was, whatever this thing that was done to you, what you did, this mistake, this sin, this whatever, when you begin to surrender this to God, God begins to take this and use it. And that which at one time you thought held you back, stopped you, hindered you from achieving all that God would have for your life actually propels you forward and allows your story, the good, the bad, and the ugly, to make sense in someone else's story. And I wonder how many sitting here today, when you look at your life and your experience, yes, you have the black mark there. But it's a black mark that hasn't been surrendered to the cross. It's a black mark that you live with each and every single day. It's a memory that you have. It still controls, it still touches, it still affects you even today. And Jesus would say to you, will you take it to the cross? Will you lay it at the cross? Because if you're willing to lay that area at the cross, God will take it. And he'll take it and he'll use it. He'll make something beautiful. See, you think it makes you less, it's going to make you more. You think it holds you back, it's going to propel you forward. It's going to be part of your story. And here's the beautiful thing, and here's how God works. God will use it to help others find freedom. He will use your story to help others find him as you get out, embrace him, his forgiveness, his love, and his grace for your life.